Hi, this is Jellycode, and we will be discussing Chapter 5 focusing on the enemy. As seen, the game has a variety of enemies with different functions and abilities. The normal enemies consist of apple, mango, avocado, and corn, while the boss is a masked man. To make them into an enemy, we all know we'll be needing a few scripts to indicate their movement, damage, and what type of enemy they are. Starting with the enemy AI script, where it controls enemy movement, attack behavior, and special abilities like knockback and shooting projectiles. It also determines different enemy types, from basic melee enemies to powerful bosses. At the top, we define some key variables. Target, the player's position, so enemies know where to move. Speed, how fast the enemy moves. Health and damage, each enemy's health and attack strength. Attack range, how close an enemy must be to attack. Attack cooldown, the delay between attacks. And the projectile prefab and fire point, used by shooter enemies to fire projectiles. Different enemy types have different stats, which we define using an enum or enumerate. In the assign stats method, we get each enemy's speed, health, and damage based on its type. Basic enemy for balanced stats. Fast enemy for high speed but lower health. Tank enemy, high health but slow. Shooter enemy, attacks from a distance using projectiles. And the boss enemy, extremely strong, shoots powerful projectiles. If an enemy is a shooter or boss, they start firing automatically. In update method, enemies constantly check their distance from the player. If they are too far, they move closer. If they reach the attack range, they start attacking. Enemies that aren't shooters will trigger an attack method coroutine to deal damage. For enemies that shoot, we use the shoot at player coroutine. This makes them fire every 1 to 2 seconds, depending on the enemy type. The shoot method spawns a projectile at the fire point and directs it towards the player. When an enemy is hit by a projectile, they get pushed back, triggering the apply knockback method. The knockback force is stronger for normal enemies and weaker for bosses. This adds a satisfying impact when attacking enemies. Lastly, the die method. When an enemy's health reaches 0, it dies and notifies the wave spawner so new enemies can appear. This ensures smooth enemy wave progression. Moving on to the enemy projectile script, which makes enemy projectiles move, track the player, and deal damage on impact. First, we define key variables for our projectile. We have speed, it shows how fast the projectile moves. Lifetime, how long before it disappears automatically. Direction, which shows the projectile's movement's direction. And then damage, how much damage it deals when it hits the player. Now let's see how the projectile gets initialized. When an enemy shoots, it calls the initialize method. This sets the projectile's direction toward the player and assigns its damage value. In the update method, the projectile moves forward based on its direction and speed. This makes sure the projectile moves smoothly towards the player. When the projectile collides with the player, it 1. Finds the player's stats component, then applies damage to the player and destroys itself after impact. This makes enemy attacks feels responsive and interactive. Since we don't want bullets flying forever, if they don't hit anything, they get destroyed after 5 seconds. This prevents unnecessary objects from cluttering the game. Following with the enemy health script, which is responsible for managing an enemy's health and handling damage. First, we need to declare key variables, which are max health, the enemy's total health, current health corresponds to enemy's current health, then wave spawner, a reference to the wave spawner script, which tracks enemy deaths. This helps us track and manage enemy health efficiently. The set health method allows us to assign different health values for different enemy types. This makes sure enemies can have custom health values based on their type. When an enemy gets hit, the take damage method reduces current health by the damage amount and checks if the enemy's health reaches 0. If the enemy's health drops to 0, it calls the die method. So when an enemy dies, it notifies the wave spawner that an enemy was defeated and removes the enemy from the game. This makes sure the game properly tracks enemy defeats. Lastly, we'll be discussing the enemy health UI or user interface script, which does two main things: updates the health bar based on enemy's current health and rotates the UI so the health bar always faces the player. This helps players track enemy health in real time during combat. Let's start with the variables. Health slider. This UI slider represents the enemy's health. Enemy health, a reference to the enemy health script to track health values. And main camera stores the main camera reference for UI rotation. Make sure to assign the slider in the inspector for it to work properly. In start method, we do two things: store the main camera reference for the UI rotation and set the maximum health and current health on the slider. This ensures the health bar starts correctly when an enemy appears. In the update method, we update the health bar's value based on the enemy's current health, rotate the health bar to always face the player. This keeps the UI easy to read no matter where the player is looking. Next up, Chapter 6, where we would know about the rewards or upgrades of the game in our roguelike game called Frog Ninja Curse of the Juicy Horde.